Watson, Deputy Chief of Staff to the Mayor and CEO of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas, David Alvey. I am excited to bring to you the first of several shows we are bringing to highlight the people, neighborhoods, and businesses in our community that make KCK and Wyandotte County a great place to live. The show, Neighborhoods Up, is part of Mayor Alvey's initiative to focus on resources that will help improve the quality of life for residents, improve property values, and secure the fiscal health of the unified government. So, we're kicking off our very first show at the Wyandotte County Historical Museum in Bonner Springs. We're here to make this a better place, and within this museum that's full of so much history, then at the tool chest of our very first mayor, James R. Parr. Inside the chest are few personal items owned by the mayor during his term. Parr was a grocer and dry goods merchant that moved from Pennsylvania West to the county in 1857. He was elected mayor of the newly incorporated city of Wyandotte in 1859 and served only one term as mayor until 1860, which was standard practice at the time. We can only imagine some of the challenges that our city faced during mid-1800s and how the first mayor attempted to address them and grow the city. We are now going to travel 160 years to present day. Joining me is our 30th mayor of Kansas City, Kansas, Mayor David Alvey. Mayor Alvey, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, thank you.
We're so glad to have him talk to us about your very first From Our Neighborhoods Up initiative. So can you explain it to us? What is it?
So I think what From Our Neighborhoods Up is really, it's an approach we need to take to growing our city and our county. You know, Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County is made up of so many strong neighborhoods throughout our past. You know, immigrant neighborhoods, settlers who came west. And these neighborhoods have always been the strength of Kansas City, Kansas. And in fact, when they began to decline, the city went with them. So this is not anything new. It's really something that's always been a part of kind of our DNA, that we are a resilient community of neighborhoods. And if we can bring strength to our neighborhoods, I believe we're going to be able to continue to grow our city and our county.
So I know you, I know your heart, and I know family and friends that know you know your heart. But can you share with those who don't really know David Alvey, what is the inspiration behind From Our Neighborhoods Up?
Well, my inspiration just is growing up in the neighborhoods of Wyandotte County. I grew up in the Turner area. My mom grew up on Strawberry Hill. You know, we've been part of the county since the 1850s, and in my experience, what made them as families strong and what makes us strong is our neighborhoods. And so if we can strengthen that again, bring more power to our neighborhoods and to our neighbors, we're going to continue to grow this community.
So why do you feel the initiative is necessary?
Well, I think if you look at Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas, you know, we have a fiscal challenge that we have a lot of properties that are tax delinquent off the tax rolls. And so we can't generate the same kind of tax revenues through our property taxes or sales taxes that other communities can. And so that puts real pressure on our budget. I think we run a pretty lean operation. Always you can find improvement, but I think we run a pretty lean operation. But we also have the burden of taxes. And even though we are now 13th out of 25 cities in the state of Kansas in terms of tax rate, we used to be first, there still needs to be more. We have a lot of people on fixed incomes. They have a hard time meeting those tax bills. But the only way to do this is to grow our tax base, to grow our revenue base with new businesses that generate more revenues. And as we do that, we will spread this burden out. But the bottom line is, beyond the taxes, we have to improve the quality of life for our neighbors. We have to give people reasons for continuing to live and invest their money, their lives, their families in their neighborhoods from generation to generation so we can build a great city.
So I'm glad you mentioned fiscal because, I mean, we all pay taxes, which means at the end of the day, we're all fiscally responsible, right?
Yes.
But what does fiscal really mean in the sense of neighborhoods up? How does it work?
So I think if we focus in on our neighborhoods and the strengths that are still in our neighborhoods, and bring more energy, more support to those, and really try to solve neighborhood problems, that will again encourage people to continue to live and invest in our neighborhoods, and we will bring in more residents who will set up more businesses, and more residents will then demand more services, which again will help us generate the revenues to continue to grow. So we have to really look at ourselves as a business in a way and say, how do we continue to grow our source of revenue so we can provide better quality of life to our residents?
So what are some of the strategies that you plan to use to do this?
So I think the most important strategy is to be very targeted with UG expenditures, so that we have to ask ourselves, if we do project A versus project B, which one of those is actually going to generate the most growth? We have to really look at the data and have the information to say, this is a better project than this one. We have limited resources. We can't do it all. What are those things we have to do to really improve the quality of life, and which will then improve the tax base?
Wow. Okay. So we all have a responsibility. How do we get engaged? How do I, as a resident, fit into this strategy?
And I think they're very simple things. You know, first of all, if you just take care of the simple things in your own neighborhood, if you've got a problem with trash in the streets, go and pick up the trash. When I first moved back to Kansas City, Kansas, after living out of town for many years, I noticed that along our road, which is beautiful with woods, a lot of trash on the side of the road. It really detracted from the natural beauty. So I would walk and pick up the trash as part of my exercise. I could use a little bit more of that now.
Yeah.
But my cousin has since taken over that role when she moved back into town. And so, but there's still times we can just do simple things. If you've got a problem in your neighborhood with graffiti or crime, make sure you call the unified government. Make sure you call your commissioner. You know, you have to put us in a position where we have to respond. And frankly, the people in the unified government do want to respond. And sometimes they have limited resources, or oftentimes they have limited resources. But again, we need to know what those problems are. We need to help you solve the problems in your neighborhoods. But always get involved. Find out, for instance, if there's a neighborhood association that your neighborhood is a part of, a Crime Stoppers group or some kind of neighborhood association. Find out and get involved. Go to the meetings and come together to solve problems. Very simple. A group of people coming together can solve many, many, many simple problems.
And we're not reinventing the wheel here. I mean, we've got livable neighborhoods that already exist, right?
That's correct. We have livable neighborhoods. We have 82 neighborhood associations throughout the city. We have 8 neighborhood business revitalization groups.
Yes.
We have the SOAR program, which is really targeting particular areas for blight reduction, remediation. So there are a lot of good things that are already happening. This is not new. This is just, Neighborhoods Up is just a way to articulate what is already happening and then bring it together and move that into the future.
So what would you suggest again for, I know you talked about getting engaged and getting involved with your local neighborhood association, which we know that's very important. So why do you think it's important that we start with neighborhoods? Why not start with business, or why not start with unified government? Why start with neighborhoods?
Well, I don't think we just start. I think all those things work together. You know, we have to have the unified government has to reconfigure itself to better serve neighborhoods. There's a movement in governance called neighborhood-centric or citizen-centric services. How do you change your services that actually make sure they solve the problems of citizens? But I think we have to focus on neighborhoods because that's where we live.
Yeah.
We can't have a community with all the development we've had in Wyandotte County, industrial, entertainment out of the Legends and sporting, those are all good things. All of these things have to serve the residents of Wyandotte County. We are the ones who live here. My primary experience of Kansas City, Kansas is the neighborhood I live. And if the neighborhood I live in is deteriorating, that's my experience of Kansas City, Kansas. I won't want to stay. My kids won't want to come and settle here. So we have to focus in on neighborhoods and make sure that our neighborhoods are solving problems and getting better, more beautiful, cleaner, safer. Those kinds of things will do a lot to move this community forward. If we don't do those simple fundamental things, then we're simply a collection of businesses that are located here and doesn't care about residents. And that simply won't work.
You are so right, because I love my neighborhood. And I remember when we moved into the neighborhood that we live in now, back in 1998, and then actually when, residents started moving in, because we were one of the first ones on our block. I mean, we just love our neighbors.
Mhm.
And it has changed the way I appreciate where I live,
Mhm.
and it's the reason why I want to continue to stay. So I know there's a lot of new things happening. Can you share some of the exciting things that are happening in Wyandotte County right now?
Well, so I think one of the most important, exciting things for me is this kind of the commission has really dedicated itself to saying, okay, well, let's really focus in on neighborhoods. And I think that's really important. And so for instance, we did hear there is a need in our community for a grocery store.
Yeah.
And so we've responded to that and tried to put together deals. And those are hard to bring to completion, but we're well on the way with a new grocery store downtown. Of course, we also have a lot of other businesses moving into downtown and along Strawberry Hill and Central Avenue. Central Avenue is a thriving immigrant community. They're paying taxes, they're contributing, they're not getting any incentives. These are all good things for us. We have a project, we believe, that is going to come to fruition at the old Indian Springs site. And I like the project that is being proposed there by Scavuzzo's because, first of all, it will bring 100 new jobs, but it will also be some restaurant sites that will serve the people who live right there. Again, the people who live within a mile of that site are going to see an improvement to their neighborhood. That's really exciting. And I think that focus, that any development we do has to somehow come back and improve the people who live really close to there, is an important change of perspective.
So if there was one word to sum up all this that's going on and neighborhoods up, what would that one word be?
I think what it's always been for Kansas City, Kansas, it's resiliency. There's that bumper sticker that you'll see, Brits has it on the bar, on the mirror of their bar. This is KCK, it's not for amateurs. Never has been and never will be. And I like because it captures our authenticity, our commitment to our city. The neighborhood groups have held strong and kept the city moving forward even when perhaps our politics didn't allow it.
Well, Mayor, I want to thank you for being a part of our very first show, Neighborhoods Up. Thank you so much for your heart and your dedication to improving our community and making this a better place for all of us to live.
Thank you so much.
Next, we are going to transition into another area of the museum that highlights various townships that helped shape our community into what it is today, and learn a little bit more about the mayor and his family and the history of where he grew up in Wyandotte County.
Here at the Wyandotte County Historical Museum in Bonner Springs, Kansas, in the Wyandotte County Park, we're always trying to update our new exhibits. One thing that we started doing is stepping out of the museum into the community. One of the projects we are working on is creating a museum for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, which is going to be downtown in the lobby at 7th and Minnesota. It should open sometime in the late summer of 2019. One item that we are going to have featured in this is a memorial to all the fallen officers for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. Here is one of the exhibits that we are going to have into that, and it is highlighting Sergeant Aston, who was killed at 98th and State. Among that, we're going to have at least 4 more objects from police officers that have who have fallen in the last couple of years as well. We don't want to give you too much, but you need to come see the museum in late summer. Another project that we're going to have is coming in April of 2019 is the Fountain Day of Kansas City. In the museum lobby, in the museum courtyard, we have a 1904 horse trough that used to be at 4th and Minnesota. It was once called the horse trough because the horses drank out of the top and the dogs and cats drank out of the bottom. They started getting sick, so they turned it into a fountain back in 1904. It was later moved to 18th and Parallel, where it was going to be moved again, and it was brought out to the Wyandotte County Historical Museum in the 1960s when it was turned into the fountain. It has been restored, but over 10 years ago, they discontinued the water to it, and we've had it restored, and we're having it turned back on this April of 2019.
We're now in an area of the Wyandotte County Historical Museum that displays the history of townships in Wyandotte County. The townships Wyandotte, Quindaro, Shawnee, Prairie, and Delaware tell the history of Wyandotte County displayed on the museum wall through pictures, maps, and artifacts. This 1903 horse-drawn pumper fire engine was used by the KCK Fire Department until 1923 to protect our residents living in these townships. Many of the architectural buildings no longer exist, but the history and memories will last through our family members and museums like this, which are so important. Well, Mayor, we have wrapped up our first neighborhoods up on our first transition. So tell us, what in Kansas City, Kansas, what about Wyandotte County, what does it mean to you?
Well, it's home. First and foremost, it's home. And on both sides of my family, my mom's side, my dad's side, we've had a long history of living and making a living and giving public service in Kansas City, Kansas. And so I'm just very proud of that, and it's part of who I am, and I really want to give back and make it great.
So can you share just a little bit about your family history? Because you got a long family name here.
Sure. So on my dad's side, the first forebearer was a man by the name of John Gibbs, and he came through the area in the 1850s, and then during the Civil War, he was out in the gold fields of Colorado and Montana, and then came back in 1866 and began to buy property where I still live. My mom's side, her great-great-grandmother was brought to Wyandotte County as a 3-year-old in 1857. And they settled in Strawberry Hill area. They had a butcher shop, really where the new KU Med downtown building will be, Strawberry Hill campus. He had a butcher shop there that was there until the 1950s.
Wow, a butcher shop, y'all. Well, when did you decide that you wanted to run for mayor?
About 20 years ago.
Really?
Yes.
20 years ago? Where were you? What?
I came back from studying in California, came back home, and had a job working at Rockhurst High School, and always wanted to, again, serve my community, and began to think, I really believe I could do a good job as mayor. And so at that time I began to look into it, and it has never really left me. So I just kept pursuing it.
So what makes Wyandotte County so special? What makes this museum so special?
I think it's our past, it's our resiliency. We really are a collection of neighborhoods. We came together really as neighborhoods, and so I think that's what really still makes us strong. And so we're a community of immigrants, and second, third, fourth, fifth generation settlers. Those are the kinds of things that really make us special.
Well, you're special too, and we thank you again. We did it. We completed our first show, everybody. Any final remarks you want to share with the residents here in Wyandotte County?
No, thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Well, you guys, that does it for our first show. We want to thank the mayor again for being a part of this and for future programs. The mayor will not be part of every show we do, but at the end, he will always have some final remarks that he'll make. And so we're going to greatly appreciate that. Thanks again for your personal story and dedication toward building a stronger KCK in Wyandotte County. His story is an inspiration, and I bet your stories are just as inspirational. Thank you for watching Neighborhoods Up. We hope you enjoyed the show. Our next show will feature an interview with Matt Tomasic, the Executive Director of the Police Athletic League, and a final word, of course, with Mayor David Albee. That's all coming up next on our Neighborhoods Up. See you next time. For more information on the Wyandotte County Historical Museum, contact David Hartman, Interim Director and Curator at dhartman@wycokck.org, or call 913-573-5002. The museum not only offers rich history, but it also provides a great meeting space for up to 80 people, family history, ancestry, cemetery searches, and an archive library. Make sure you go to their website at wycomuseum.org, or be sure to check out their Facebook page.